Of all the questions during interviews, this is by far the one question that I like the most. How we got to here, how FLI, the journey, what has it been like for the past 20 years? It's very interesting because 20 years ago, there were not the alternatives and the options that are available today. Back in the day, as an in-house general counsel of a Fortune company, I was confronted with the reality that my company, my employer, was not willing to pay the high rates of the international law firms. So it was not a viable alternative for me, and I was expected to figure out how to sink or swim. So the idea was that I was compelled to create a network of my own. And here we are 20 years later, and this is now a force to be reckoned with. It's a brand of itself. For the general counsels of today, even though there are more alternatives and options available, the reality is that the in-house legal department cannot afford to take risks. And when you're acting on cross-border matters, you do need to have the best people and the best talent in the industry. And there are not enough hours in the day to be able to vet and travel and find and groom and train law firms from all over the world. So this is the one value proposition of First Law International, is that we've done that for the past 20 years. And now we can provide to our clients a vetted, trained, and very professional, top quality law firm in country. So that is how the journey started. It was the need, a legitimate need to find an alternative, a viable alternative to the external large mega law firms that primarily dominated the industry.
The FLI model, I think, is one that's very unique. We look at things a little bit differently. We look at the inside counsel's perspective. Our core philosophy is really one that may seem trivial, but it's one we really believe in, and that's providing value. And value is both providing better service at a better price point with higher commitment to quality, while simultaneously also ensuring that we respect our clients' budgets and that we are hitting all of those different touch points when working with them in various jurisdictions. And in so doing, we've been extremely successful in being able to work with these clients that have been with us for an excess of almost 2 decades now in over 100 jurisdictions. And that's something that we're extremely proud of, and that's something that our clients regularly value with us.
As I reflect over the past 2 decades, the landscape was significantly different. We're talking pre-9/11. We're talking pre-Lehman Brothers. We're talking, a different landscape in terms of how you retain external counsel, and the way that those individuals went and retain outside counsel is radically and significantly different than the way it is now. Most of those companies had long established relationships with their mega partners on the outside. These were the large law firms. Budget was not an issue. The boards were not concerned with securing more cost-effective value for money at the time, and it was primarily mostly relationship-driven. So 20 years ago, in context, the start of this network was an impossible dream. It was a business model that fell in deaf ears. But we also knew that there would be some companies that would find this very attractive. The notion to have now a viable alternative to the traditional, much more expensive and rigid and inflexible mega law firm was something that caught the interest of many of the in-house counsels. I'm often asked, what was it like getting it there? What were those turning years? I've even been asked, do I remember our very first conference, the very first get-together with a handful of attorneys in Kiev, of all places, in Ukraine. And it's just startling to me as I sit back and look at that 20-year journey. We are now into 100 countries. We have over 18,000 attorneys. We have been hosting conferences every 6 months for the last 19 years. We have been to every major capital or business hub in the world, and we have managed to mobilize attendance from upwards of 55, 60 countries at any given time. And we have also been featured by the Financial Times as a true innovator. We are the only global player in our space that has been featured not only once, but twice as a true technology innovator. I'm often asked, what is the criteria that was used in the early days, and what is the criteria now to select our partners? I take a lot of pride in of course, sharing with the media when I attend these events, whether I'm speaking at a conference or whether we're attending one of our own conferences. But when we have interviews, the criteria has always been the same. It hasn't changed. We're looking for the best quality law firm in country. I always ask myself the question, is quality enough? Is it just having a great attorney? Is that all that is required? In all fairness, there are a number of building blocks that have been assembled and put together over the years. We pride ourselves in what we call in our business model, the power of one. That FLI is based primarily on simplifying the steps and the success of the offering into one single engagement, one single letter of engagement, one single blended rate throughout the region, one single point of management, one consolidated invoice. There are significant and very salient differences, but in addition to quality, and in addition to be already a pioneer for the last 20 years, we were the very first ones to be featured in the Financial Times, as I said earlier, but also we were the first ones to have an app that was available to our clients around the world. We're also the very first one to bring in former GCs of Fortune companies into FLI to become project managers, to become experts and industry advisors to our clients so that they could feel secure in the hands of a colleague, someone that was just in their place a few years ago.
Well, I think there's several factors that come into play when we look at FLI's history. I think at the core, our management team and our counsel and everything that we do is fundamentally structured to be in line with our clients' needs. Our clients need competent local counsel that speak their language, that understand the risks that inside counsel face, not only in their domestic jurisdictions, but abroad. We're successful because we've been able to harness and to cultivate a culture where clients will always come first. And we streamline their various projects across those different jurisdictions to be in line with their domestic policies, with their codes of conduct, with their commercial and sales teams' requirements, and with the overall organizational structure. So outside of looking at legal as a silo, we see it as part of an overall operation that our clients need to be accountable to. And so I think the success is that our perspective is that legal isn't necessarily a cost center, but instead it is a resource that can provide tremendous amount of value if it's done correctly.
I've always liked that question, would I do it differently? Was the challenge worth it? As I look back, I think that having built this network, this community of integrated law firms of common interests, to disturb a market that was enshrined in secrecy and inflexibility and elasticity, right here in the midst of the capital of the European Union, I think it speaks for itself. I could have returned to the States and do it where it would have been probably easier and certainly much more congenial to my bringing into my way of thinking. But to have conquer the titans from right here out of Brussels, Belgium, where we endure 268 days of rain and clouds. It isn't in itself a significant achievement. And the fact that by being in Europe, we managed to naturally bridge both sides of the world. We could connect with the U.S. at a reasonable hour and connect with Asia at a reasonable hour. I think that added a significant advantage as well. The fact that most Europeans are multilingual, the fact that we can travel to 30 European capitals within a 2-hour flight. There are just a number of other advantages that as the world moved on and 20 years ticked, most of those young law students of 20 years ago grew up to be LLM students with US degrees and UK degrees and Australian degrees. They became, fluent English speakers. And so now, as we look back, we say, wow, look where we are. But the journey started was practically an impossible dream. And here we are now with what we have, which is an incredible brand and a very prestigious business offering. I suppose in closing, if I had to redo something slightly different, I would have liked for Zoom to have been already a reality 20 years ago. So the carbon footprint of having flown to 100 countries to do the interviews over and over would have been slightly less, pronounced than I'm sure my travel did during the early days. But other than that, the people that I met throughout my life's work of 2 decades, the attorneys, the members of our board as they have rotated over the years, the managing partners of those firms, the young aspiring lawyers of those law firms in country that value and treasure what we were trying to do, and the tremendous opportunity that we would bring to them as they were sitting in Peru, and they were sitting in Uruguay, or they were sitting in Pakistan, or they were sitting in Albania. The fact that we were connecting them to the world, we were opening doors and opportunities to act for clients that would never find them. Those experiences I will treasure forever, and I wouldn't trade them for any convenience or any other way of doing it.